The most useless and unimpressive Guinness World Records. Nataraj Karate of India holds the Guinness World Record for the most straws stuffed in the mouth, both with and without the use of hands. On the 25th of August, 2018, he stuffed a record-breaking total of 650 straws in his mouth without hands, as we can see in this picture. I'm sure this record demanded a lot of effort, but it annoys me that I have to use a flimsy paper straw to drink a thick milkshake, while this guy is applauded for wasting 650 plastic straws without counting all the straws he must have wasted for practice. For this reason, I have kicked off the nominations for the most useless and unimpressive record with Nataraj Karate. The word straw can mean different things. Straw can refer to the drinking straws, like the ones used by Nataraj Karate to set his record. Straws can also be the dried yellow stems of crops such as wheat, used as food or bedding for animals. Then there's the last straw, or the final straw, which is an idiom we use when we have reached our breaking point or limit. Look at the gentleman in this picture and try to imagine the series of events that may have happened to cause him to lose it. Here is one possible scenario. That morning, his car broke down, meaning it wouldn't start. So he was unable to drive to work. He found out the car repairs are going to cost him a fortune, which means it will be very expensive. His boss has just informed him that his coworker will be assigned to his best client because of his absence at work. Now he is trying to get caught up with his work, but his computer won't start. So he gets angry and shouts, "That is the last straw." Let's go back to our nominees. Next on our list is Englishman David Morgan. David Morgan might just be setting the world record for being the most boring individual. When I think of incredible engineering achievements, I think of the Eurotunnel, Hoover Dam, or the CN Tower. Then there's David Morgan, an engineer from Oxfordshire who claims to have invented, wait for it, drum roll please, the traffic cone. Look, I recognize the huge role traffic cones play in the number of lives saved during roadworks every year. I'm just not sure inventing a traffic cone in and of itself was a huge engineering milestone. I'm fairly certain someone would have invented the traffic cone eventually, and it's just a coincidence that little David Morgan came up with it first. Why is he on this list? Well, he actually holds the world record for the largest collection of different types of traffic cones. Considering that David Morgan founded his own company that manufactures traffic cones, that's not that impressive, is it? He seems to be pleased with himself, though. He's actually super excited in this picture, but you can't tell because he's English. I can assure you, though, this is the face of a happy Englishman. A cone can refer to different things. A cone is essentially a geometrical shape. You can also have an ice cream cone. The cone in this picture is a waffle cone. In Canada, we have lots of pine cones. And of course, there's David Morgan's legacy, the traffic cone. Next we have Ashrita Furman. Ashrita Furman holds the record for the most records, with over 600 titles. I had to nominate him because while none of his records particularly stand out as unimpressive, it's his intentions that I'm unimpressed with. I just don't think it's in the true spirit of Guinness World Records to try to break as many records as possible just for the sake of it. Many people have dedicated their whole lives to perfecting an art or skill, and some have ended up in the book by accident. This guy is just an attention seeker. I think he's a show-off. A show-off is one who puts on an act in an effort to attract attention. The Irish UFC star Conor McGregor, who is notorious for being cocky, is a prime example of a show-off. We also have the peacock, which is perhaps the biggest show-off in the animal kingdom. Show-off can be a noun, as in, nobody likes a show-off. Show-off can be a verb, as in, stop showing off. Words related to show-off are flaunt, boast, and brag. Now it's time for you to show off your skills. Fill in the blanks with the correct idiom. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but this cheesecake I made is the best cheesecake I've ever had. Blowing one's own trumpet is to talk proudly about your achievements and successes. You could also blow your own horn or toot your own horn. Blowing your own trumpet is to boast or to brag. Oh my! You shouldn't have gone overboard with the decorations. This was supposed to be a small party. To go overboard means to go over the top or to do too much. Our next useless record holder is Elizabeth Bond from the UK. She created the largest knitting needles. This is quite literally a very useless record because you can't possibly actually knit with these needles. If you're like most people, you might think, what on earth is the difference between knitting and crocheting? Well, here is a visual to help you tell the difference between these crafts. Nowadays, we use a sewing machine to sew. Knitting has made a comeback in the last decade, and it's now a popular hobby amongst young women. Crocheting. The T is silent. Crocheting is similar to knitting, but knitting uses 2 knitting needles, while crocheting uses 1 crochet hook. Finally, there's embroidery, which is usually done for decorative purposes. Do you remember the names of all these crafts? Give it a try. Sewing, embroidery, knitting, crocheting. Our next unimpressive record was achieved in Denmark. The art association Solwash created the largest chalk pavement art. This is remarkably unimpressive because, as you can tell in the picture, anything drawn with chalk on the pavement was labeled chalk art. Shouldn't art be measured by its artistic qualities rather than the size of the canvas? Then again, when I visited the Louvre in Paris, I did find the Mona Lisa to be surprisingly much smaller than I had imagined. Art is heavily used in the English language, and probably in your native tongue too. Everything is art and everyone's an artist. Traditionally, an art form can be grouped under visual or performing arts. Visual arts include painting, drawing, photography, while performing arts include ballet, opera, acting, singing. When someone does visual arts, we usually call them an artist. Someone who performs either in a theater or stage is a performer. Let's practice art-related verbs. What is she doing? She is painting. She is painting. What is he doing? He is drawing. He is drawing. What are they doing? They are acting. They are performing in a play, which is a live performance, unlike television or cinema. What is he doing? He is dancing. He is break dancing. What is the difference between what are you doing and what do you do for a living? When I ask what are you doing, I'm asking what are you doing right now? What are you in the process of doing? What do you do for a living is asking what's your job? For example, I'm dancing with Jenny. In this sentence, the speaker is actually dancing with Jenny at the moment of speaking. Whereas I dance the waltz does not necessarily mean the person is dancing right now. This is just what they do, either for a living, so their job, or maybe as a hobby. Either way, it would be something they do regularly. Look at the difference between the other sentences. I'm painting a picture for my mother. This means I'm painting right now. I paint with acrylics. I am knitting a sweater for my baby. This is what I'm doing right now. I knit sweaters. This is something I generally do. We saved the best for last, or I suppose in this case, I should say we saved the worst for last. Our final unimpressive and useless world record is held by Linda Wolf. Linda Wolf is the most married woman in the world. She has married a total of 23 times. Yes, 23 times. I had to nominate this as the most unimpressive record because to be married that many times is more of a failure than an achievement. It's not really something you should be bragging about. Basically, 22 of her marriages ended in divorce. But the record for the most divorces doesn't sound as great as the most marriages. The Guinness World Records is a great reference to use for describing and comparing people and things in English. Let's take Patrick, for example. If I am just talking about Patrick, I would use the base form of the adjective. Patrick is tall. Now, if I were to compare Patrick to James, I would use the comparative form. James is taller than Patrick. Okay, but what if we are comparing more than two people? Well, then we use the superlative. In the last picture, we have Patrick, James, and Mickey. James is the tallest one. In this case, we use the small word tall. But what about longer words? Let's use ridiculous, which is a long word, as an example. Ridiculous means silly. I could say, these knitting needles are ridiculous. Collecting traffic cones is even more ridiculous. Getting married 23 times is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Now it's your turn. Fill in the blank with a superlative. David Morgan has the largest collection of traffic cones. Linda Wolf has been married the most times. Ashrita Furman holds the Guinness World Record for the most Guinness World Records. Elizabeth Bond holds the record for the largest knitting needles. That's the end of the lesson. Here are some more words that mean ridiculous. Absurd, crazy, ludicrous, strange, silly, bizarre, odd, outlandish.